Hi everyone, I'm Steve Stoller.
And I'm Shannah Haley, and this is Inside Plano, where we take you behind the scenes of our city.
We'll introduce you to the faces and places who help make this a great place to live.
And give us lots of reasons to love Plano. Hello, Steve Stoller.
Hello, Shannah Haley.
I'm going to repeat what I just told you offline. Every episode, I'm laughing at the beginning of the show, and I was determined today I was not going to laugh because you're always telling a joke right before we start recording, and my husband has given me a hard time about that.
So you noticed that this particular podcast I refrained.
You did. I kept it under control.
And you still started laughing before we started.
Well, I was just looking at you. You didn't tell the joke, but your face just said, I got a joke inside and I'm going to break it out.
I think it's because you're just a happy person.
I am, and I also know some of the things we're talking about today, and I know a pretty epic impression is probably going to be coming out at some point. You know, by the way, I've gotten feedback from folks that you're actually pretty darn good. They're like, are you bringing guest stars on? I'm like, no, that's just Stoller. So, good job.
I don't know who they're talking about.
Well, you've done your Beatles impressions. You've done several for us.
I'm trying to show some of my hidden talent.
That's right.
There's not much of it there, but I try to show it occasionally.
Keep digging into it. Well,
a lot going on.
Yeah, that's right. It's September and school zone's in effect. Schools are back in session. Crazy times. September's one of my favorite months though because A, we're past the heat of the summer. You know, I know it started late this year, but we're supposedly at the time where we're not supposed to be in 100-degree weather anymore. And it's also festival time, so you know.
There's some great festivals in September.
Absolutely, and the State Fair, of course, starts. Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite September festival?
I would love, well, I always go to the State Fair, usually every year. We usually go as a family and have a great time. But it's also the Plano Balloon Festival, which is a long running tradition.
40th year this year.
Yeah, and it's, you know, last year we had some incredibly heavy rain.
Yeah.
So hopefully the weather gods will cooperate this year and we'll get some good weather and we'll get a lot of balloons up.
Yeah, you know, maybe we should bring our listeners up to speed on what happened last year because some people, you know, weren't here that are listening to the show and they're using this as a way to learn more about Plano. So last year, very unusual. It's not necessarily unusual to get rains in September. That can be the beginning of kind of the fall rains, but
torrential rains.
Yeah, really historic flooding levels even. We were talking to one of our staff members is a balloon enthusiast, balloon crew member. In fact, he's behind the camera if you're watching this on video. You know, he mentioned that during the press briefing that they'd never canceled the balloon festival. And, you know, it was drizzling and gray. And the next day, of course, torrential rains, flooding. And true to form, they did not cancel the balloon festival last year. They postponed it indefinitely. So they still have never canceled, but we weren't able to do anything. And, you know, a lot of just everything was underwater. It was impossible for the festival to go on. So I'm looking forward to it this year.
And we've talked to all of our friends at the National Weather Service, the meteorologists, and we've arranged for a good weather weekend during the festival this year.
Yes, and you know, some of those meteorologists live in Plano, so we've been putting in a good word because they know it's important. So if you don't know when that festival is, it's towards the end of the month, September 20th through the 22nd. Obviously, lots of balloon-related things to do. You can see the glow up at night. You can have tethered balloon rides. You can see them do liftoffs in the morning. It's just a wonderful time. And there's also a kids zone, lots of things to do. So don't go just for the balloons. Go to enjoy some of that good festival food and fun and games throughout the day.
It's really reasonable, you know, when you consider all the entertainment. $10 per day, $20 for a weekend pass. If you have kids between 3 and 12 years old, it's $5, and seniors 65 and over, kids 36 inches and under, get in free.
Yeah, that's a good deal. And of course, you know me, love running, and they've really expanded their running events. On Saturday, you can do a 1K, which is, you know, essentially just a fun walk. And then they have a 5K also on Saturday. And then Sunday, a 10K and a half marathon. Now, the weather usually still is warm in September, but that is a very popular race. You know, you have the balloons flying over you as you're running. It's just really special. And Oak Point Park, there are lots of pretty areas in Plano, but I am very partial to running around Oak Point. It's just gorgeous.
You know, it's amazing. This is the 40th Plano Balloon Festival.
I just can't even
40
imagine.
years.
Do you remember when they moved to Oak Point Park? Because they used to meet
Bob Woodruff.
Bob Woodruff.
Yep.
Outgrew that space, and that the area where the balloons actually set up was designed for that purpose. We call that the balloon field. So
It's a great event. Looking forward to that.
for sure. Hey, I want to give you an update. Last month I mentioned that the Animal Services, their biggest event is actually Clear the Shelter. Despite all of the things that they do, Clear the Shelter is a huge event. So update on the number of animals.
Yeah, this is amazing. And again, it's not just the Plano Animal Shelter. This animal shelter is across North Texas.
Right.
At the Plano Animal Shelter, we had 91 animals find new homes, which is incredible.
It is. And,
Yeah.
you know, it was kind of a slow day, and I think it was because it was really, really hot. You know, I had asked our team for an update. Midday, we had maybe 45 animals, so just not very many at all. And we thought, well, gosh, it's going to, you know, we have a high adoption rate out of the Animal Services shelter anyway, but you know, you still want to have a good showing that day, and just people kept coming in droves, and we're very careful to say animals adopted because it wasn't just dogs and cats. We had rabbits, and believe it or not, a hedgehog adopted.
Really?
Yes, and the hedgehog was the cutest thing, and I kind of wish I'd known that he was there. Although my cats probably would have enjoyed him for a different reason, so probably better that he went to a different home. So, you know, another thing that I wanted to talk about today, and folks listening to the podcast, we're talking about things a little differently. Instead of kind of going through the calendar, we thought we'd give you a little insight into what some of the departments are doing and some of the big events that are going on that are associated with those. So forgive us as we walk through kind of a new format for the show. Neighborhood Services Department, I can't remember yet if have we brought them onto the podcast yet? I think we are
so.
In upcoming days, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll have to have Lori Shore as the director on. She's great.
For sure. And a lot of people don't realize the scope of services, and I'll save that, you know, discussion for another day, but it's property standards, of course, but it's also really building these really engaged neighborhoods, and how do we keep our neighborhoods strong and vibrant. And they do great work. And one program that they do is the Love Where You Live program. Now, I know that you've done some work with them on the media side, really helping people understand what that program's about. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of times with the Love Where You Live, they get volunteers, and volunteers come out, and sometimes it may be a focused neighborhood or even a few houses in a neighborhood, and they're just trying to spruce things up, clean things up a little bit, and sometimes they actually do a little work on some of the homes. It's a really good effort, and the whole idea is to not only make the neighborhood look a little better, but to get everybody involved as a community, you know, as part of a overall effort to spruce things up.
Absolutely. And, you know, they actually work in those neighborhoods for a year. So that service day that you're talking about, I think they do a couple of them a year. And then they also do workshops all year long with that neighborhood, really helping them focus on ways that they can grow as a neighborhood. So they look at areas that might not have an active HOA, or they might be one of our older neighborhoods that's going through transformation. So it's just a little extra TLC, but the neighborhood is a part of the TLC. So they're investing in themselves, and the city's coming along as a partner. And the whole reason for talking about that is that we do have a service day coming up this month, and we've been working since May. So this entire year we're working with the Douglas community, and you are very familiar with our Douglas
Absolutely.
community. So
One of the first neighborhoods in Plano.
yeah, very historic, still very deeply connected neighborhood. People have lived there for generations, and just it's a great and special place in Plano. So September 14th from 8 till noon. We'd love for anyone to come out and join in that cleanup day. And I don't want to call it a cleanup day. It's a service day. It's not just cleanup projects. It's lots of things. So, you know, labeling storm drains, it's putting house numbers up, it's doing a little bit of TLC on homes, and we provide a light breakfast, and we make sure you have plenty of water and things to stay hydrated. So it's just a really great way to give back.
It brings people together, and I think it enhances a sense of pride for one's neighborhood.
Absolutely. And so the Douglas neighborhood is just south of historic downtown Plano, and historic downtown Plano, now that it's not so hot, site of a ton of stuff going on. You want to go through some of the activities in downtown in September?
Sure. Well, just like you said, no more heat advisories. The Courtyard Texas Music Series has just been incredible. this year. You know, I've split the MC duties with Todd Rice, who's a member of your department, and there's been some just incredible concerts there. September 5th, Courtney Patton and Jason Eady are coming. On his last two albums, Jason Eady earned major acclaim for his ahead-of-the-curve take on classic country. It's a bold departure from his earlier excursions into blues-infused Americana. Now he has 6 albums out. He's from Mississippi. He's a singer-guitarist, and he's really merged his distinct music into a stripped-down, roots-oriented sound that really showcases the gritty elegance of his songwriting. Courtney Patton, on the other hand, she's a storyteller. She's also a mother, a wife, a producer, a singer-songwriter, tour van driver, and a musician, as well as a world traveler when she's out on tour throughout the continental U.S., Canada, and Europe. Anyone who's lucky enough to sit in the audience to listen to her expansive Texas twang belt out her version of deep and soulful country, they will enjoy this show. She's a true storyteller and just a fabulous person to watch.
Well,
on
and
stage.
you know, folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually believe when we're talking about her being a wife, I believe that Jason and Courtney are married to each other and they they travel together, you know, so, which is always interesting because last month, right, it was a husband and wife at the Stallings. Yeah, and that was a sold out concert. So, you know, like Steve said, this is a really special concert series. You just don't find this anywhere else in the metro area where you have these stripped down shows, you know, mostly acoustic, definitely, you know, pure Texas country. It's amazing. And the Courtyard is a venue like...
Excellent venue. Not a bad seat in the house.
Yeah. So, you know, again, we're saying downtown, site of a lot of stuff, and really a lot of the stuff is happening at McCall Plaza, and that's just a really cool outdoor stage space. So September 7th, our dog training is back, Paws on the Plaza, because those little paws are not going to get burnt on the plaza. We're finally in cooler weather. And one of your favorite series, the Downtown Sessions, is starting back up in September. The theme for September is throwback. So.
Oh, baby, I need a jelly donut. Where's the Colonel? Where's the, who am I talking about when I talk like this, baby?
See, I knew it was coming.
And it's not Elvis. You got to say, the Texas way to say Elvis is Elvis.
Elvis.
It's almost like you can't hear the L. So if you love Elvis, and who doesn't, David Allen's Ultimate Elvis Experience, September 7th. Mark that date on your calendar, Shannah, September 7th.
I will.
He's dubbed the Prince of Rock and Roll. David Allen has been performing his tribute to the King of Rock and Roll since 2000, and he's ranked in the top 10 in the world by Elvis Presley Enterprises since 2011 as an Elvis impersonator. So if you love Elvis, you'll love David.
So can I share something personal with you and with all of our podcast listeners?
Sure.
So I'm actually going to miss this concert, but it's for the funniest of reasons. I'm actually going to be out of town that day. I've mentioned before that this year's my 20th wedding anniversary.
You're going to Graceland in Memphis.
No, I did that last year. I'm not a huge Elvis fan, but I have been having this Elvis journey across America lately. And it kind of culminates this very weekend of this concert. It's so funny to me that it's this weekend. My husband and I are going to Las Vegas, and we're getting remarried, doing a vow renewal by an Elvis impersonator.
Oh my gosh. Now, should I be concerned that I haven't been invited to this?
We're running away. It's an elopement.
All right. I feel better now.
Anyway, it's one of those ways that we always said, if we get married again, Elvis is going to do the wedding. So
September 28th, there's another throwback concert that should be very interesting.
1970s.
Neil Young fans, it's a 1970s throwback. Daniel Marcum actually does Neil Young.
Yeah.
He's a Denton singer-songwriter. He's known for rock music comparable to Big Star and Neil Young.
Yeah, and he's very well known on the Denton music scene. You know, I was doing a little digging around. I was like, gosh, you know, why would they pick Daniel Marcum? He's a singer-songwriter, you know, known for doing albums in a month. I mean, he's just been very prolific on the music scene. So he's a great guy to Google and then come down to McCall Plaza to hear him. So September 20th, I'm going to pronounce it the way I pronounce it, karaoke. We have a karaoke night at McCall Plaza. So that'll be another fun thing to come out and, you know, after you've enjoyed concerts, to test your vocal chops and see how you do. Well, it doesn't feel like a podcast unless we talk about our libraries. And I thought it might be interesting. You know, there their schedule is just really intense, and their new catalog for the fall has just come out. And I thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about what they do that's more than books, because there's some really interesting classes that they have on tap for this fall. So maybe we can go through a few of those.
And it's incredible what a wide variety of classes they offer.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in starting a business, at Davis Library, you can attend a business basics class to learn about what structure is best, marketing strategies, growth, potential revenue, and veteran-owned business opportunities. Really good class for people who are interested in that.
Absolutely. You know, it's unbelievable the amount of back-end stuff that you need to do in order to have a successful business. So I think that'll be a good class. This is one I found really interesting. Haggard Library is starting up a senior series. It's a group for seniors to meet, and it's really kind of a conversation group so that reminisce, share, connect with each other. One thing that, you know, studies show is that maintaining social interaction is so important as we get older, because family members move away, you know, pass away, your kids move, and maintaining those deep connections matter. So that actually meets twice a month over at Haggard Library.
I think I'm actually old enough to join that group now.
We're not going to talk about
And
that.
all my conversations begin with, back in my day.
Exactly. Hey kids, back when I was on TV.
Nah.
So September 14th is a big day. Speaking of getting older, Harrington Library is 50 years old. Can Harrington sign up for AARP?
Yeah, the library is named after Gladys Harrington,
Yep.
who's one of the pioneer families of Plano.
Yep.
Very interesting. She's passed away many years ago, but one time I interviewed Gladys Harrington, and the reason why I interviewed her is she had voted in every election that she was eligible to vote in. Since she was eligible to vote to probably the day she passed away, she voted in every single election. It was that important to her. She was an amazing woman, Gladys Harrington. I had to offer that when I saw Harrington Library.
Well, I think that, and it's also a good word because the world needs more Gladys Harringtons.
Absolutely.
Voting's really important. Well, go stop by the library. You don't have to stop by on the 14th for the 50th birthday party, although of course that will be fun. But Harrington Library is a special place. It's east of 75, so it's the furthest east library location, great tree-lined area. It's just a wonderful place to go. So let's say you want to work on your technical skill sets. It is amazing how many products, you know, you and I were just kind of struggling through some of the new Adobe Creative Suite products, trying to learn them. Well, there are all kinds of media classes offered at the library, like Par Library's Adobe Premiere Basics class. Now, Adobe Premiere is a video editing platform. In fact, our team uses it for our video production. So you can actually go take this free class, learn how to turn your raw video footage into a professional video.
You know, we talk about the wide variety of classes they offer. I mean, this says it all right here. If you or a family member are eligible for Medicare, they actually have a Medicare 101 class at Schimmelfinnig Library. People are confused sometimes about their options for Medicare coverage. Well, you know, are you still working with your employer coverage? If you're wondering if you should sign up for Medicare or not, are you or a loved one having a hard time affording your Medicare costs? The class covers the basics of Medicare and government programs to help with Medicare costs. Really important.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's very confusing to navigate the options, so that's great that that's on offer. And I'm actually pretty proud of myself that every time we talk about the libraries, I manage to have you say Schimmelfinnig. It's like that's a skill set of mine. Well, we have to end with parks because they always have something great for folks to do, focused on getting you outdoors, getting you moving, having a good time. I feel like I have to talk about the dogs because we just have so much going on. September 8th is the Canine Kerplunk.
This is a fun event.
It really is. Out also on our easternmost located rec center, Oak Point Rec Center, out in the shallow pool outside from 9 to noon. Bring your dog. Let them have a great time literally swimming in the pool. The only thing you have to do is make sure that you bring your current rabies tag with you. And if you're so inclined, we would really appreciate a donation to the animal shelter. And I will link in the show notes, along with all the information about these events, to some things that the animal shelter really could use.
You know, I'm amazed when I go to the dog park and I see all these different breeds of dogs running around and all behaving so nicely and getting along. Imagine all those dogs in a swimming pool. I mean, that is a sight to see.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those fun ones to video. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned a dog park. Let's talk about the other really big thing that's happening.
We have a brand new park opening this month.
September 23rd. So that's really the grand opening event for Windhaven Meadows Park and the ribbon cutting in particular for Liberty Playground. Thank you so very much to Liberty Mutual for your $1 million donation that made that park, the Liberty Playground portion of that park, come to life. Just incredible. So what do we have out there? Obviously, we have another dog park.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be the biggest one.
I think so. I think it's 5 acres, give or take. And, you know, then of course, I looked up because I thought, all right, what does a $1 million donation, you know, of course we have the Jack Carter All Accessible Playground, but this is, you know, yet another really amazing offering. I looked up, it's 20,000 square foot accessible play area. It's intense. And I know that a lot of parents will be happy to hear this. There's a splash pad out at this park. The dog park, tons of trails, tons of still heavily treed. You know, they've kept a lot of the natural urban forest out there, the open meadows. It's what they call a passive park. It's not designed to be, you know, one where there are athletic fields and whatnot in there. It's just really meant for you to go out and enjoy a day at the park. And so we'll have another big party I'm working on with our Parks and Recreation team for the whole community, and we want to give you like little glimpses of the different areas of the park. That'll be in October, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer to that day.
And for those who don't know where Windhaven Meadows Park is,
Yes.
It's on Windhaven Parkway, just a little bit off Spring Creek Parkway. It's kind of a little bit southwest of where those two streets intersect.
Right, and just slightly east of the Dallas North Tollway. So there are a couple ways to get there. You can get there on Parkwood, you can get there on from the tollway, you can get there from Spring Creek. You just have to get on Windhaven.
It's going to be a great park. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Our special guest today is Jim Dingman, our Environmental Health Manager. Jim, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Jim, we always like to start our interviews by asking people to tell us something about themselves that we don't know.
My lifelong passion has always been wildlife biology, and that was my career choice and education that way, and had the opportunity to study whales in Baja California, but ended up studying birds in the high mountain plains in Colorado. So my career took a kind of a turn there, and then I was looking for a job and saw a ad for an environmentalist at a health department in Colorado. And I thought, same thing, I guess. So I took it, and actually it was environmental health, and I've been doing it now for 37 years and enjoy it, and hopes to do it a long more time.
Do you have any hobbies or interests away from work that are kind of not work related?
Yeah, I do. I'm really interested in photography, interested in target shooting, skeet shooting, trap shooting, that type of thing, and also coin collecting, and of course, food.
Jim, your title is Environmental Health Manager. What exactly is environmental health?
Well, I think, Steve, it can be summed up in that it is the science that tries to minimize the exposure to diseases, whether those diseases are environmental diseases or whether they're diseases from things like food, water, that type of thing. It's basically ensuring maximizing the health and safety of the public.
One of our favorite topics on the podcast, Shannah and I, is food. We talk about food constantly. And coincidentally, September is Food Safety Month. Why is food safety so important?
I think people have a general interest in food safety, but I think sometimes it gets subdued a little bit. So devoting September to basically bringing food safety back to the forefront, because people really need to know what to do to make sure that they are eating safe food, preparing safe food, serving safe food. So it's nice to have a focus on food safety for a month.
Speaking of food, your team does restaurant inspections.
Right.
What are some of the things that they look for when they go out and they inspect the restaurants?
There's a number of different things that would probably take longer than this podcast to identify, but the major thing are what we call priority violations. And those are things like serving food from an approved source. In other words, we don't want your Aunt Sally's chicken and dumplings that she makes and brings into the restaurant. We don't want that in a restaurant. may be really good, but we don't want it in a restaurant. We want to make sure that the food comes from an approved source. We want to make sure that food temperatures are maintained during the whole process, from receiving it from the back door to shipping it out to the customer in the front door. We want to make sure that temperatures are such that food does not have a chance to stand in what we call the danger zone too long and enable bacteria to grow, which can in turn then lead to foodborne illnesses. So we also look at the employees. Employees are a big factor in preventing foodborne illnesses, believe it or not. We want to make sure that they're healthy. We don't want somebody that's sick working. I'm sure as a patron or customer, you don't want that either. You want to make sure that food's prepared by a person that is well, that follows proper procedures. We also make sure that they wash their hands. It's a really, really important thing to make sure is being done. And we want to make sure food is stored safely and properly at the right temperature as well. And then there are other things like storage of toxic materials and making sure that they're not contaminating food or equipment. A number of different things, and then all the way down to things like the actual floors, walls, and ceilings, the actual structure of the building we look at as well to make sure that they don't contribute anything to opportunity for foodborne illness, bacteria, viruses to grow or to multiply.
Food trucks have become so popular, not only in Plano, but throughout North Texas. Do you also inspect the food trucks?
We do. In order to, for a food truck to serve in Plano, they have to have a permit. And so they have to get that permit from us. So in order to get the permit, they have to undergo an inspection. And then if we see them at events throughout the year, we will also do surprise inspections at that point.
How can residents find out the score of their favorite restaurant?
Actually, that's really easy. We have a part of our webpage dedicated to that at www.plano.gov, environmental health, food, and then there's a whole section on food scores. You not only see the score, but you can actually look at the inspection for that restaurant and see what violations were actually written down about that particular restaurant at that particular site visit. So it gives you an opportunity to search by a number of means, including address, type of cuisine, as well as the restaurant name.
Of course, when we talk about food safety, it's not just restaurants. What practices should we take at home to make sure that we're cooking and preparing food safely?
It's kind of a unwritten rule, I guess, not necessarily a rule, but unwritten fact that most foodborne illnesses don't occur in restaurants, they occur at home, but they're just unreported because people don't realize they're sick. If I could say 3 words that could sum up this whole podcast of what I would like people to get out of it, those 3 words would be 3 simple words: wash your hands. Because that is the key to not only preventing foodborne illness, but also preventing the spread of other illnesses. And it's a simple process. Wash your hands doesn't mean run your fingers under a trickle of water and consider it good. It means wetting your hands, putting soap on it, lathering it vigorously for 20 seconds, and that's roughly the time it takes to sing Happy Birthday. And you can sing that in your head, or if you want to sing it out loud, who cares, right? The thing is, people need to wash their hands. That will do the most good. Other things are, especially in this time of the year as we're looking toward the holiday season, want to make sure that food is not being thawed on counters, that it's being thawed properly in a refrigerator, preferably. There are other means, but refrigeration is by far the easiest and safest way. We don't want you to wash your poultry, especially in the sink, because it doesn't need to be. What you do when you wash a turkey or chicken is you spread all that bacteria through the water droplets onto whatever surfaces that you may or may not subsequently clean and sanitize. So washing poultry is really a no-no. Other things to be aware of is to making sure that you're storing your food in your refrigerator in the proper order. You don't want to put raw chicken on the shelf over, let's say, an open bowl of fruit salad or something like that, because we don't want chicken juices dripping down into that. So ready-to-eat foods on the top, and then other foods below them.
Jim, the Texas legislature passed several laws during their last session that related to food safety. One of them was about the preparation and sale of homemade goods. What should we know about the cottage food law?
Probably the most important thing to know is that they are completely unregulated by state law. We can't permit them, we cannot inspect them, we cannot be involved with cottage foods in any regulatory manner whatsoever. The scope of products that they can serve has increased. It used to be just baked goods. Now it includes acidified foods, pickled foods, more than just pickles. You can pickle other fruits, vegetables, whatever, and other types of foods as well. So the scope of products has expanded. The only thing they still cannot prepare and serve under cottage food is potentially hazardous foods. Anything meats, that type of thing. Even custard baked desserts like creme brulee, pumpkin pie, and that type of thing.
One of our new endeavors is the Food Match program. How does the Food Match program work?
We actually launched that early this spring, and basically, as the name implies, it's an opportunity for someone who has food to donate to match up with someone who wants to receive that type of food. And right now, it's restricted basically to grocery stores. So let me give you an example. So a grocery store has a pallet of bananas that they're not going to need. They can go on the website and say, hey, I've got a pallet of bananas, and it sends an alert to all of the people that are on the receiving end, and they go on the website and say, oh, I want that pallet of bananas. It might be a food pantry, that type of thing. And so it connects the two together, and they can make arrangements then to get the food from the donating site to the recipient site, and it's all done online. It runs very smoothly.
Jim, great information. Thank you very much for being on our Inside Plano podcast today. Jim,
thank you.
Jim Dingman, Environmental Health Manager.
Thank you, Steve.
So we do love talking about food, and I actually learned quite a bit with that discussion with Jim today.
This is very good information, useful information that we can all use at home and when we go out.
Absolutely. We were just talking a few minutes ago, just the two of us, about hand washing. I'm not going to ask you to mention the song that I've never heard begin, but I had heard "Sing Happy Birthday" while you're washing your hands, and I actually do kind of hum that song inside my head while I wash my hands.
And I heard that you hum the alphabet song.
Yeah. Do you hum the alphabet song?
Well, there's another song that I hum,
yes.
But it's 14 minutes long, so I try not to wash my hands that long.
Steve's hands are very clean. So I met with Jim and some of his team earlier this week and learned about a product that you can use. Of course, it's more available for education, but I'm totally going to get it because I think it'll be interesting to do some videos using it. It's called Glow Germ, where you can spray and then you can actually see how well you've washed your hands or cleaned a surface because a black light reveals it. And I'm slightly afraid to use it, because I have this slight obsessive side to my personality, and I'm afraid I'm going to glow germ door handles and all kinds of things and then become a germaphobe.
They used to have something like that for your teeth.
Yes.
You would brush your teeth,
yes.
And then you'd put like the chemical in and it would show you the spots that you missed.
Yes.
I guess same principle.
I think so, but it's so true that the littlest things sometimes have the biggest impact. Because you're like, oh, okay, I totally need to use the right kind of cutting board, and certainly that's important. I need to wash countertop surfaces, certainly that's important. But what do you, or should you do multiple times a day that you may or may not do as frequently or as thoroughly, probably is the correct way to say it, as you should. Wash your hands.
That's right.
Wash your hands. So, he was talking about the fact that they do restaurant score, they do the restaurant inspections, and then you can find the restaurant scores on our website. Have you ever gone and spent time looking at restaurant scores?
I have.
I have too, and I'm torn by that because, there's always this part of you that's a little afraid that you're going to find out that a favorite place might not have the score that you want it to have. But I do appreciate because it shows you the history of what's happened on the inspection, what they've been asked to do, and kind of the timeline. So you really can have confidence, and I think that's pretty awesome. Eventually they're going to integrate that into Yelp, and then you can, if you're on the Yelp app, instead of having to go to our website to find their restaurant score, you can just look at it while you're trying to decide which burger place is closest to your location, which which I know is going to make a big difference for you. Which burger location? Steve's just staring. He's just staring at me like, this is fascinating.
I'm taking it all in because this is really good information too.
It's really good.
Especially when you're talking about the burger joints.
I know, because of course it's close to lunch, right? Oh man, we love talking about food, but what I really do love talking about is our city. I just think that it's so amazing the amount of work that goes on, and I think our environmental health group is a prime example of something that's critically important that doesn't get talked about a lot. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're out there testing swimming pools. They're out there looking at food quality. They're catching mosquitoes.
I was just going to mention that. I mean, going out and setting mosquito traps and then seeing how many mosquitoes are in each trap. I mean, that's not an easy job to do. And some of the places they set the traps are where a lot of mosquitoes like to hang.
Absolutely. And, I think it's easy for us as a Plano resident. Both Steve and I live in Plano. We pay our taxes like everyone else. It's easy to see the obvious things. You see a police car, you see a firefighter, you see a street crew even, but all of that stuff that happens underground, the sewer systems, the folks walking through the creeks to check on a mosquito trap, the person who's outside at 5:30 in the evening looking at, doing a surprise inspection on a food truck to make sure that you don't get food poisoning when you're out at an event. Those are the things that really add to your quality of life that you don't even think about. And it's just, I'm really grateful for those folks because they do work hard day in, day out, and they don't get a lot of public recognition for it.
I've probably said it a million times, coming from a different industry and getting into city government, just how impressed I've been since I've been with the city of Plano. It's just the caliber and quality of the people who work for city government in Plano. It's amazing. I mean, we have some amazing people working there.
Absolutely. Well, we're now starting to talk about ourselves, and so yay, go Team Plano. But I do want to thank everybody for listening to yet another episode of Inside Plano. We tweaked some things this month, so we'd love to get your feedback on did you like the changes to our format, and if there are other hidden things that you've always wondered about, like what does that job do, or is anyone doing that job, send it to us, askplano@plano.gov. We'd love to answer your questions, and thank you as always for listening to our show. We'll talk to you next month.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
And that's it for our Inside Plano. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did doing it.
If you have any comments or suggestions, send them to us at askplano@plano.gov. Bye.
Talk to you next month. The Inside Plano podcast is brought to you by the City of Plano and 97.5 KLAK.